Hello, Professor Del Quadro. It's Alexandria Hoats here. I'm about to do my speech on the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Just wanted to show you my audience. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. When you think of the desert, what do you think about?
Sand.
Cactus, dry.
Dry.
Cactus.
No water.
Well, how about flourishing or colorful or waterfalls, gardens?
No, not
No.
really.
No.
In a mirage.
Oasis.
Maybe.
Maybe.
It seems unlikely that any of these things would ever be present in a desert. However, this is how ancient Mesopotamians may have described their city of Babylon, for within their city walls were the Hanging Gardens. Along with the pyramids of Giza, the Hanging Gardens are one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. They made this list because of the remarkable construction, the antiquity, and the beauty of them. As mentioned in the 2012 book, The 7 Wonders by Charles River Editors, the Hanging Gardens are perhaps the most mythical and mysterious of the wonders because no evidence has ever been found. So how do we know they existed? Well, ancient texts. Ancient texts have been able to describe to us in great detail what the gardens looked like, why they were built, and how they were built. And that's some of the information I'm going to be sharing with you today. So let's start with why the Hanging Gardens were built. So the most revered theory as to why the Hanging Gardens were built is based on an ancient text by a priest named Berosus. In Berosus' script, it's a romantic tale of sorts where King Nebuchadnezzar married his wife Amytis, and then Amytis was homesick for her home country. So Amytis was from Medes, which was lush and vegetated and mountainous, and Babylon, where they moved, was dry and arid, and there was no plants. Furthermore, King Nebuchadnezzar was not only satisfying his wife when he built these gardens, it's also suggested that he was sustaining the union of 2 empires when the gardens were built. Mark Cartwright mentions in his 2018 article on the Ancient History Encyclopedia website that King Nebuchadnezzar married Amytis, who was from the Median Empire and whose father was the king of the Median Empire. And it was to initiate a formal alliance between those 2 empires, the Babylonian and the Median. Moreover, he suggests the gardens were to impress and maintain that alliance. So if the king was not only building these gardens to impress his wife and this alliance, it stands to say that the gardens were beautiful and remarkable. So let's move on to what they might have looked like. Because the gardens have never been found, it's kind of hard to imagine what they looked like. However, because ancient texts have been able to describe them in detail, we can get a pretty good idea. First, the Hanging Gardens didn't actually hang. It's a mistranslation from the Greek word kremastos, which means overhanging, since the gardens seem to drape and overhang on the balconies. Maureen Carroll's 2003 book says that the gardens rose in tiers that resembled mountains with vines and plants that cascaded over the balconies. And then in order to move through these expansive gardens, there were pillared terraces along with oversized walkways and grand staircases that were both within and outside the structure. Archaeologists and historians such as Stephanie Daly from Oxford University translated scriptures that mentioned the plants that were found in these gardens. There were things such as date palms, cypress, juniper, myrtle, as such, and also flower beds and ripe fruits and other lush foliage. Besides plants within the gardens, you could also find sculptures and statues, as well as water features such as waterfalls and fountains. So now that we understand the beauty of them, let's move on to how these might have been built. The Hanging Gardens didn't make the list of the 7 wonders by accident. In fact, they took remarkable feats of engineering and ingenuity in order to create them. So they had to get water to their city, which, as we know, was dry and arid. So it's suggested in the 2002 Encyclopedia Britannica article about the Hanging Gardens that since the city was built near the Euphrates River, they dug canals and trenches in order to move water from the river into city limits. This canal and trenches not only prevented flooding, but also provided irrigation to crops and therefore the gardens. Also, for the gardens to not fall apart immediately, it required structure and good construction. So Babylonians spent a lot of time on ceilings. First, they would lay down a reed laid in bitumen, and then 2 layers of baked brick, and then finally a layer of lead in order to make very strong structured ceilings. Then, not only for ceilings, they needed strong walls, and they used huge stones and blocks that were 16 feet long and 4 feet wide. So with these two things combined, they were able to create a very good construction for their hanging gardens. So as you can see, the hanging gardens were remarkable, and they inspired and were studied by everybody in ancient times and today. And even though they've never been found, we've been able to understand them in great detail, such as why they were built, what they looked like, and how they were built. And even though they've never been found, I encourage you, never stop looking.